Yo, what's up? It's Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time for our bootleg update, guys. Going to give you all the latest and greatest coming out of Japan. Got, I think, 32 titles to tell you about. 32, 33, something like that. We'll get to all those right away. Then we'll review some recently released stuff, actually, for the most part. Allman Brothers Band, Complete Oakland 1975. I told you I was going to pounce on that. Glad I did. Interesting bootleg. There's something about it that's different than any other bootleg I've ever heard. So we'll talk about that during the review. Alan Parsons Project, Night of the Live Project. Been digging into some CDRs lately. I've got all the silvers I kind of want. So now, kind of looking back at all those CDRs that I used to just look right past, giving them a second look, and glad I did. This is from their first U.S. tour. As you know, they didn't really tour until here, 1995. So, nice soundboard of that to check out. And then last but not least, let's sink our teeth into this one. Sabbath Paris 1983 soundboard. I already had it on a non-label silver press CD, so we'll compare the two. But of course, mostly we'll just go through the whole show and talk about how great Black Sabbath is. All right, man. Let's see. Before we get started, what are we drinking? The last of my 4-pack from Michelle and Paul. Guys, thanks a lot. I haven't had this stuff in a couple years. Really good. Lawson Sip of Sunshine, Stratford, Connecticut. You gotta love when it was only canned 5 or 6 weeks ago. 4-pack, biting the dust today. Let's top that off. And guys, at the end, if all that isn't enough, look what just happened to land on the doorstep. Another Japan order. We'll slice it open as soon as we're done all the other yapping. All right, let's get going. Here comes latest releases, at least the ones that I think look cool. There's actually 5 Sabbath titles. You ready? All of them soundboard. Well, no, 2 of them soundboard. Let's start with those. Reading Rock 83. Zodiac's the label, so it's silver press as always from them. Soundboard. Supposed to be an upgrade on the sound. Nothing new on it. This is already on the Born Again Deluxe Edition. August 27th of 83. We're only about 10 days or so into the tour. So, you know what? I'm passing on this one. You know I'm a Sabbath nut. I love a standalone as much as anyone else. Upgraded sound. I mean, it's 12 years later now, I think, since that deluxe edition. I'm sure it sounds amazing. I can't do it. I have a little bit of allegiance to the bands when they give us something themselves, especially with no new material. I'm actually going to pass on this. I can't believe I'm hearing myself say that, but I am. Here's something, another title. Hartford 1980, the Legendary Master. 2 CDs, August of 1980, Hartford, Connecticut. Pretty popular Sabbath bootleg. It's from a King Biscuit Flower Hour broadcast, or at least this is the complete show of the recording. Let's put it that way. Now, this is a reissue. I have this already from a couple years ago, and I should have pulled it off the shelf to show you. As I've already showed you this before, there's some awesome bonus material on here. The Cozy Pal tape, I forget what it's labeled, but it's basically 5 or 6 songs from Unknown Venue 1980. That is the best sounding Sabbath live, definitely from this tour, maybe ever. Do not dismiss that bonus material. It's awesome. It sounds way better than the King Biscuit show. Although, there you go, the whole show plus the bonus material. And I think there's another B-side from one of the Heaven and Hell singles, maybe Die Young. Flip side, I think it's a live Children of the Sea. Zodiac's the label on that 2 CD release. If you don't got that one, yes, get it right away. Some audience stuff from Sabbath. Reading 1983, Complete Audience Master. Shades is the label on this guy. Obviously amateur recorded. It's the full show, which is nice. So nice companion to your Reading Rock 83 by Zodiac or your deluxe edition. You get the songs Born Again and Keep It Warm. Speaking of warm, a little toasty today. course, I barely stepped outside. Air's kicking. So what am I complaining about? Complete Stockholm 1983, another audience recording, now August 19th. I think this is the second show of the tour. Zodiac's your label again, so it's a silver press, and again you get the songs Born Again and Keep It Warm that eventually would be dropped, I think, in and out of the set during the tour, if I'm not mistaken. It's audience, so I'm not interested, but I know a lot of you guys don't care about that stuff, so there you go. Phil of Born Again Sabbath. Another title from Sabbath, this one from Heaven and Hell Tour. Definitive Riot Act. 2 CDs. It's on Zodiac. The infamous October 9th, 1980 show in Milwaukee. I think they're 3 songs in. Dio's introducing NIB. Introduces Geezer. Geezer gets socked with a bottle. Has to go to the hospital. That's the end of the show. Riot ensues. Someone who was taping at night just let the recorder record it. Kind of cool. I've listened to this on YouTube. I don't know if I listened to the whole thing. I think it's 30 or 40 minutes just rioting. Listen to 15 minutes, you kind of get the point. That's CD1. CD2, Rochester, New York, War Memorial from a week later, October 16th. It's a little under an hour, also audience. I guess if you've ever wanted either of these shows, you get both of them in one little Zodiac package. All right. Santana, Amsterdam, 1972. This one looks cool. It's the late show soundboard. We just got the early show soundboard a month or 2 ago. Uxbridge, the label on both of them titles. Caravan Surrey Tour. No Neil Schon on this. He had just, I guess, left before this recording. It's supposedly big on percussion and stuff. I had this album on cassette forever ago. I just remember it being like very psychedelic. Forget the, percussion instruments. Kind of a psych fest is what I remember. However, live might sound a little different. I wouldn't mind having this one. All right, a slew of Police titles. It started last update. It continues. Somebody has the key to Sting's vault. So get ready for, we'll just go down them real quick. Half dozen Police titles. They're all on the Uxbridge label. They're all soundboard. Here we go. Berlin, 1980. 17 songs on that one. The Bottom Line, 1979. New York City. BBC Studio Tapes, 1978 to 79. 16 songs total from 4 different BBC sessions. Essen, 1980. 2 CDs and a DVD. Kind of cool. October 18th, 1980. So 2 CDs for the concert and 1 DVD of the concert. Same concert. The Rat, Boston, 1978. This is an October 29th of 78 show. Last but not least for the Police soundboards, Philadelphia, 1979. Walnut Street Theater, April 9th of 79. 10 songs on this guy. Guys, I'm from Philly. I've seen a couple plays at the Walnut Street Theater. I never heard of it being a musical venue. News to me. Still learning shit all these years later. All right, on to some other material. Macaulay Schenker Group from 1990. This one's called Los Angeles, 1990 soundboard. Zodiac's the label, May 25th concert. Silver CD. The encore, Dr. Doctor, with Klaus Meine on stage. It was his birthday. Also Rudy Schenker. That must have been awesome. Macaulay Schenker Group and Scorpions, same show. At least I'm assuming the Scorpions were there too. 2 of them were. Bonnie Raitt live at Wolf Trap, 1977. Vintage Masters is the label. And this is an FM broadcast from Vienna, Virginia, July 20th, 77. Just to spice things up. Throw a little wrench in there once in a while. Not a huge fan of hers, got an album or 2. She's kind of cool, bluesy. This is a recommendation for sure. Roger Waters, if I already bought it, pretty good sign that I'm recommending it. Already showed it to you. Radio Chaos on the Road. 2 CDs on the main title. For some reason, it's in a Fat Boy box that could hold 4. It's just 2. Maybe they're just running out of like double CD cases or something over there, because I've noticed a couple other titles recently packaged the same way. So Speakeasy's the label on this. The 2 main CDs are an FM broadcast from Quebec City, November 7th of 87. 2 weeks later, Another FM broadcast, this one from Wembley, London. It's only a dozen songs. Kind of cool. Well, maybe I'll end up reviewing this because it's kind of interesting. I've had the Quebec show forever. I mean, I used to have it on tape back in the day. So I'm really looking forward to listening to that. I've only listened to the Wembley show so far. And it's really cool, high quality FM broadcast style. Jim Ladd in there, also a radio DJ here and there. You get the entire Radio Chaos. And I think one solo song from Roger, 3 Floyd songs. But among the dozen songs on the Wembley show from November 21st, you get the entire Chaos. Unlike Quebec. Quebec only has 3 songs from Chaos. It's 20 songs. So very different, 2 very different kinds of shows, you know. Really interesting stuff. Really cool so far anyway. I already familiar with the Quebec show. I know it's cool. I can't wait to hear what it sounds like all these years later. I mean, I had that in the early 90s, so definitely want to check that out. Now, I knew this was coming with a 3 CD bonus. It ended up coming with 2 3 CD bonuses. So I've sorted out what they are. I showed them to you. Wasn't sure what I was looking at. Radio Chaos on the Road is actually a reproduction of a bootleg triple vinyl from back in the day, from November 21st, 87, Wembley. Same date as CD2 on the main title. All right. So what was this other CD? You know what? It was just called Radio Chaos on the Road Final. I just thought it was basically an upgraded version of the old school LP. That's usually what final kind of means in the bootleg market. However, what it is I just noticed this right before taping this. It's from November 22nd, Wembley. So there was one more show. Final, meaning the final show of the tour. Another audience recording, obviously. But that's kind of cool. Anyway, it was sort of an extra. Although the total price for this was $41. So had there not been all those extras, probably would have been a $25, $30 disc, double disc kind of thing. Nevertheless, glad I got it. So there's one of my picks of the month. Moving on, Rolling Stones live from the radio, Paris 1970. Gold plates the label, 2 CDs, back-to-back nights here from 70, September 22nd and 23rd. FM broadcasts, both shows each on a CD. Similarly, we got David Bowie, Montreal 1983 Soundboard. This is actually spread over 4 CDs. War Doors the label. July 12th and 13th of 1983 from the Montreal Forum Let's Dance Tour. Full show on both CDs. So that's really a nice pickup if you're into the Let's Dance. Guys, I really like Bowie, really respect Bowie. I don't like him live. I don't like how the songs get faster and it just doesn't do it for me. I remember watching this back on HBO in the day. Sirius Moonlight Tour, what have you. You know, anyway. I normally would be interested in a title like this from an artist like this, but I just don't like how he does a lot of those old songs live. Bad Company, Newcastle, 1974 Soundboard, March 9th of 74 from the UK. 11 songs, 1 CD on Wardour label. And Roxy Music, same title, Newcastle, 1974 Soundboard. This one's on 2 CDs on the Virtuoso label. I'm not a huge Roxy Music fan. I own nothing by them. However, this was the top seller on Disc Japan a few weeks ago, so I know some of you are interested. Heart, Rally 1985 FM, 2 CDs on the Zion label, 8 songs from the self-titled 1985 album. You know, obviously not a big fan of that kind of era, but you know what? For some reason, I'm a little interested in hearing this. You know, I didn't like those songs back then. It's been almost 30 years, you know. I wouldn't mind hearing them now and then. Obviously, you get a bunch of classic rockers in there also. You could do worse than 1985 with Heart. However, you know, got to take it with a little grain of salt. This title looks cool. Peter Gabriel, Cardiff 1980 Soundboard. 2 CDRs from March of 80, Sophia Gardens, Wales. Just before the release of his 3rd album, aka Melt. and it's on the Amity label. Nice looking title there from Peter Gabriel. Here's another cool, probably pick of the month. Journey, Definitive Denver, 1979. 2 CDRs, FM broadcasts. Gypsy Eye Project is the label. Denver, Colorado, obviously. It's back-to-back nights once again. Got a little running theme here. May 8th and 9th from 79. Evolution Tour, I think it's their second best album. Very different set lists between these two nights. I think there's 5 or 6 songs different. So even though they're only one single disc per show, the set lists kind of vary. So this is a cool looking title, obviously. Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street Sessions. Can you go wrong with a title with a name like that? 2 CDs on the Mayflower label. Recordings from between June of 69 up till March of 72. Exile associated recordings done in the UK, France, and LA, USA. Jeff Beck Group, quadraphonic mixes of the first album. Quad mix onto a CD. Isolated tracks and live material as your bonus and filler stuff on there. And bonus DVD-R of them on the Beat Club in 1972, non-label with Jeff Beck Group. Oh, wow. Did you just hear my back crack? Damn. Sitting on this drum stool isn't helping situation. All right, Little Feat, Charlton 1976 Soundboard. Single CD on the Zion label. Can you go wrong with this one? Charlton Football Grounds, London. If you're a Little Feat fan, got to go after that one, I'm sure. Alice Cooper, Cooperstown, Denver, 2001. Single CD on the Shades label. 8-song show for the grand opening of the second Alice Cooperstown, Alice Cooper and baseball themed restaurant. Guys, the only reason I'm putting this thing in here is because I never even heard of that restaurant. Kind of cool, you know? I mean, again, still learning new stuff all these years later. The first of these restaurants opened in Phoenix in 1998. So here we are in Denver, 2001. I think it's maybe spring. Unfortunately, 9/11 happened a few months later, and the restaurant was closed a few months after that. So the Phoenix restaurant was able to stay in place for 16 or 17 years. It's now closed. I just thought this was cool, but here's a soundboard recording of the grand opening concert he must have gave somewhere near or at the restaurant. On to some John Lennon. Interesting title. If you know the album Rock and Roll, I think it's from 75. Lots of old rock and roll standards. 73 maybe? I'm sorry. Messing up the year. I'm not a big Beatles Lennon guy, but I'm familiar with the album. I've heard it a few times. This is called Rock and Roll Roots Collector's Edition. Pretty interesting little backstory with this. Some of these titles I throw at you just to show you the variety that bootlegs offer. That, you know, honestly, legitimate stuff doesn't dare tread sometimes. So you get Rock and Roll Sessions and alternate takes. 1974 rehearsal for the album. Old Grey Whistle Test performances from 1975. The main feature being a mail order only pre-rock and roll release called Roots of Rock and Roll that had alternate mixes compared to the official album that would come out later. It was, like I said, a mail order only thing. So less than 3,000 were made supposedly, and it's become highly collectible among Beatles fans. So here you go, your digital copy of that album, which was eventually pulled. So who knows if the 3,000 copies ever even got sold or what have you. Just an interesting kind of thing there. John Lennon fans, I'm sure, loving this one. Speaking of John Lennon, live in New York City, 1986 release of his August 30th, 1972 show at Madison Square Garden. Now guys, if you're anti-bootleg, I mean, you're probably not watching this to begin with. If you are, and you're anti-bootleg, if I'm ever called to court to testify why bootleg should exist, this will be Exhibit A, all right? The live in New York City on CD, but Yoko's voice has been almost completely removed. I repeat, Yoko's voice has been almost... Case dismissed, all right? Bootlegs, grant you a stay. Oh man, the fruit is kind of coming to the forefront as we go along with this guy. Kind of a hoppy beginning. I'm liking it, man. All right. Styx, 1976, Seattle 76, FM broadcast, Real Master, full title there. Uxbridge is your label, Seattle, Washington, March of 76. It's a CDR. Man, some good old days there. Fleetwood Mac, Salt Lake City, 1987 Soundboard. 2 CDRs on Uxbridge, November of 87 concert. Tango and the Night Tour. Rick Vito and Billy Burnett on guitars in place of Lindsay. Now, here's a cool looking title for Whitesnake fans. I have to tell you, I had that little box of Snakes. I thought I was going to love it. Covered out right after Deep Purple, but before they were, Aquanetting it up. I really couldn't get that into those albums. I have to tell you. I ended up selling that little box of Snakes. I put it all in my iTunes and bon voyage with that. I kind of regret that, but nevertheless, it didn't impress me. I have since picked back up Saints and Sinners. That's a pretty damn good album. But what I'm getting at here is if you're a fan of Little Box of Snakes, here's your companion, all right? Box of Snakes, The Test Master, non-label with this release. It's 2 CDs and 1 DVD. The 2 CDs are Reading Festivals, 1979 on one disc, 1980 on the other. The DVD has a bunch of music videos, BBC performances, and then 8 songs live from Washington, 1980. I have to be honest, I might even go after this. Why, if I don't like Little Box of Snakes a whole lot? Sometimes I need something to kind of kick me in the ass and maybe refresh my memory or just give me a new spin on something that I didn't dig the first time. This might be, what was it? Dawkins Breaking the Chains, Carrera Edition. Hopefully, I'm not saying I'm going to order it, but I'm thinking about it, Pretty cool title. And last but not least, guys, this was actually from last year. Somehow I missed it, so I'm mentioning it now because it looks pretty cool. Peter Frampton, Seattle, 1976, Soundboard Master. And War Doors, the label, 2 silver press CDs. I never considered Frampton Comes Alive to be like a fake live album, but then again, I haven't heard it in, I don't know what, 20, 30 years. I still have that vinyl from back in the day. One of the few I've kept from the 80s. Haven't listened to it in so long, can't even tell you. I'd be interested in hearing this versus the real album, or the live album. So guys, that's it. That's going to do it for your new releases. There are 32 or 3 or 4, I don't even know. Bunch of new stuff. My picks would have to be that Waters double CD, Journey, Definitive Denver 79. You know what? You probably can't go wrong with the Bad Company 74 if you're a fan, or Peter Gabriel, Cardiff 1980. That looks cool. But you know what? Whole lot of cool looking stuff here. Got to admit. All right. Let's get on to some reviews. Let's start with the Allman Brothers Band, Complete Oakland 1975. Allman Brothers Band, guys, Complete Oakland 1975, 2 CDRs, Vintage Masters, the label on this one. Soundboard quality. If that's not up my alley, I don't know what is. I love the Allmans. Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Arena, October 24th of 75. Now, guys, the lineup on here, same as it's been for a solid 2 years now, since the Brothers and Sisters album in 73, which was recorded, I think, end of 72. So really a full 3 years with this lineup. Now, the 73, I have a couple of concerts from 73. There's a bonus from the Brothers and Sisters Deluxe Edition. It's got a show from September of 73, Winterland. Then I have New Year's Eve show from Winterland. It's 4 CDs. Those shows they're really starting to jazz up their jams, their extended stuff. It's still rocking, but it's jazzy rocking, and probably more jazz than rock in some of the songs. In 1975, however, you get Win, Lose, or Draw. sort of a return to form, in my opinion. I mean, it really kind of sounds a lot of like Southern country, blues, rock, basics, all right? Now, the band was in Macon, Georgia, recording their parts. Greg was living in LA, dating Cher at that point and all that stuff. Recording his parts out in LA. You know, in my opinion, guys, another one of these situations where the people that were around the band at the time, the band themselves, producers, close friends and musicians, basically look back at that chaotic situation, and I think it interferes with their judgment and clear opinion of the music. I think Win, Lose, or Draw is great. I mean, I've had that thing since the late 80s. It's a really good album. It just is. I mean, I'm sorry. I think it is probably the best thing they did or would do until they got back together in the 90s, you know. It's better than their late... Enlightened Rogues in 79 gets a lot of good reviews. I think Win, Lose, or Draw really is better, you know. Just my opinion. I just watched this video after the crash, you know, obviously talking about what the Allmans did after Dwayne and Barry Oakley passed, how things went. It's basically a documentary. And Johnny Sandlin was the producer for Capricorn Records, produced the Allman Brothers albums. Him, you know, there's some other dude on that talking about how horrible Win, Lose, or Draw was. I don't know what these guys are listening to. I mean, it's just another one of these situations, a lot like Never Say Die for Sabbath. Oh, the situation was just so horrible, and I don't know. My opinion is that album's great. Overall, let's get back to this. The sound on this, really good and excellent at times, no problem. What is unique about this thing, and I've heard a lot of bootlegs, I've never heard one like this. Occasional random isolations of the instruments and vocals and combinations thereof. I'm talking about where the sound engineer, who I guess was transferring what he was engineering, was transferring it to tape simultaneously. Well, his mix is what transferred to the tape. In other words, he would occasionally take these backdoor listens to just the bass, just the drums, just the keyboards, or the keyboards and the vocals, or the bass and the guitar, or whatever. And every now and then you get just those instruments for 3 seconds, for 5 seconds, for 2 seconds, for 10 seconds, whatever. You know, it's kind of, honestly, a really cool backdoor listen to what's going on. First time I listened to this, I was driving around. And it was interesting for the first half, and then I think towards the second half of the show, it started to get a little much. I kind of started to get a little, you know, it was kind of overdone. I just wanted to hear the whole band playing the whole time. Second time I threw this on, I was at home. I was blasting in my living room. And you know what? Even though all the same things obviously happened, as it did the first time I listened to it, it really didn't seem, maybe I guess I just got accustomed to it happening. But it actually, if I had to say, could I have this thing without any of that versus, you know, just having your standard full band, I don't mind it on here. Being that it's the only bootleg I've ever heard like this, because I'll tell you, some of those isolations become high points to the show. And, you know, you just wouldn't have had it happen on a standard release where you hear every instrument all the time. So I'm okay with it now, you know. And I've only heard this twice. I had the one listen where it was starting to get a little annoying at the end. Last listen, totally fine with it. Actually kind of sets this thing apart from so many standard releases. The crowd is heard really well during the show, and they are really enthused about this show going on, all right? The set list, obvious career overview that you would have on any other 3-hour show. A couple of solo songs here, one from Dickie Betts, I think one from Greg. But the highlight to me is that you get most of the Win, Lose, or Draw out. There are some edits between the songs. I think to get this thing to fit onto 2 CDs should have probably been a 3 CD show. 3 CDs, it probably would have been 45, 50 minutes a show, you know, or a disc. So they jammed it into 2 discs, and you could tell that there's probably some edits between songs. One song ends, 3 seconds later another one's going. You just know it wasn't going down that way live. So some high points from this disc. You know, let's just go through it a little song by song. In the beginning, you get Bill Graham introducing the band. Always awesome. Always introduces everyone as Mr. Greg Allman, Mr. Dickie Betts, Mr. J-Mo. Love that. More Mr. J-Mo. I'm just started a Bill Graham biography. Can't wait to hear some tales about the Allmans in that thing. The crowd just roars after Bill's introduction. Crowd is totally enthused about seeing the Allman Brothers. Really cool. And you got to remember, they hadn't toured in a couple of years now at this point. They toured in 74, but I'm not sure. We're at the end of 75, you know, so I'd have to look that up, but fans are ready. Don't Want You No More and Not My Cross to Bear, your typical openers for the Allmans, sound really cool. You get some isolated Chuck Leavell fills on the keyboard for a few seconds here and there. Really good. I mean, it's just really tasty stuff. You really wouldn't have heard mixed in with all the other instruments, so it's kind of cool. Long Time Gone, Dickie Betts solo from the Highway Call album. Cool to hear that live. Good song. Not in love with that album. Really sort of a throwback album, but this song's pretty cool. Cool to hear it live. Now, highlights for me, all of the Win, Lose, or Draw material, and what we get on here is the title track, the first song to sort of step into the ballad mode, sort of. That's a good one, though. Greg's voice is a little rough on here. Got to admit that. His voice is not in top shape. Can't Lose What You Never Had off of Win, Lose, or Draw. Great song. You know it. Really cool hearing Chuck Leavell. He does the riff after the chorus by himself. And then there's, I think, the second chorus. He does it with Dickie. I don't know if that's just tape isolation or not. I just remember hearing that clearly. Really good stuff there. High Falls, high point of that album. Doesn't disappoint live. Chuck Leavell has some isolated parts here that sound amazing. I mean, this dude was only 19 years old when he joined the Allman Brothers, and 3 years old. All right? He is amazing. And this High Fall sounds great. Nevertheless is a really cool song from Win, Lose, or Draw. That's one of my favorites. Disc 2 starts out with Jessica. Crowd loves it, of course. Who doesn't? Awesome song. You get a little bit of the piano alone on there. Chuck Leavell, you know, was on board for that. He's the piano behind that song. Bass, isolated, sounds good. You also get the piano and bass isolated, just those 2 instruments. It's kind of cool. All of these isolations, guys, are brief. You know, it's 95% the full band on these songs. So these isolations just happen and then they move on, kind of thing. It's really an interesting listen, you know. Stormy Monday on here is really good. I would usually not consider this one of my favorites in an Allman set, but this one's really cool. It starts typical bluesy, like it usually does. Then it has these jazzy passages that, you know, I guess it always did, but now we're in sort of at the end of that jazzy era for the Allmans. But they're still in there a little bit, and this is one of them. There's no isolations on this song at all, one of the few. So there are my highlights from this album. Les Brers in A minor is really good too. Whippin' Post is your final. Great one, man. Totally into this guy. Enough so that I ordered 3 more Allmans mid-70s bootlegs, late 70s for one of them, I think. Guys, this is a great one if you love the Allman Brothers. You know, just be ready for a couple of those isolation moments, but overall it's a great show, and those isolations are really cool, at least for me. Alan Parsons Project, Night of the Live Project. The label's Project Zip. This is actually a 2014 CDR. We're in Cincinnati, Ohio at the River Bend Music Center, August 24th of 95. Guys, this was the first ever U.S. tour for Alan Parsons Project. Brief history of these guys, since I've never brought them up before on the channel. Eric Wolfson and Alan Parsons formed the Alan Parsons Project in 1974. 2005. Basically a songwriting, recording, producing, engineering duo. I remember Alan Parsons, I either read this or heard him say in an interview that this band could have just as easily been called the Eric Wolfson Project. For some reason they chose Alan Parsons as the name. The concept was to not be a traditional band. None of that was ever even in the works. Basically they wanted to be songwriters, recorders of songs with no restrictions that a typical band had by having a certain amount of members who could only play certain instruments. So, not only would they write songs regardless of their own abilities and restrictions of being able to play them live, they would bring in however many musicians it took to complete the ideas in their head about the songs. So, obviously an ever-changing cast of musicians required to record the albums. And their basic concept was, if we have, say movie directors like Stanley Kubrick and Steven Spielberg, who were sort of bigger than the actors in their movies. Their films tended to have a concept and a sort of style. That was the concept with the Alan Parsons Project. This is going to be a reflection of the creators, not the players. 50 million albums these guys have sold worldwide. So I guess you could say their concept kind of worked. So as far as playing live, first album, 1976, they didn't play a show till 1990. And that was a one-off charity show. And then one more charity gig in 1993. So this is actually from their first world tour, which began in Mexico City, one show in Mexico City, and then North America, where I think they played around 30 shows. This being towards the end, this is I think the 25th show of the tour. They would go on to play Europe and South America in the fall. But here we go with August 24th, Cincinnati, Ohio, Night of the Live Project. Alan Parsons touring bands would be in a cast of ever-changing musicians, just like recording the records was. The overall sound on this, guys, is really good. It's an FM broadcast. They can vary, as you know. This one's a really good one. Clear, the crowd is heard well, good amount of bass, guitars sound clear, all that good stuff. This is a really, really good sound. And, there's no DJ announcer kind of thing going on. You just get the music. When it fades in, it just starts right up with the beginning sort of ominous keyboard of Sirius. No intro at all. Solid show, which, I've seen these guys 4 times. Typical for Alan Parsons Project live. High level performance. Really talented people. They have 2 lead vocalists, 2 keyboard players. It's not easy to duplicate what they did on record, so they go all out live. No shortage of people on the stage. One thing I could tell you that stands out a little bit on this performance, the lead guitar on here. Now, Alan Parsons not chock full of guitar solos. However, the ones that are on here sound better than the records. Actually better. How could they possibly sound better? Well, because they're 90%, 95% duplicating the record, and yet there's like this live sort of snarl on the guitar, like this bite. I don't know. Just sounds better. It's got a little bit of attitude that the records have some. This has more. Turns out Ian Berenson, who is one of the players on here, was one of the mainstays in the studio with the band on lead guitar. He also played keyboard. He actually just passed away this year in April. So let's toast to Ian Berenson, guitarist from Alan Parsons Project. Not something that I even noticed or caught when it happened, but only a few months ago. Rest in peace to him. The keyboards and programming on here, the keyboard sounds great. Like I said, the vocals sound awesome. Let's get to some highlights, some favorites for me. You can't go wrong with Sirius right into Eye in the Sky as your opener. Cool one. The guitar solo, I already told you how it's better. right on here on Eye in the Sky better. Okay. Luciferama, this is a combination of 2 different instrumentals. Really cool. 2 keyboardists, like I said, needed to duplicate what was done on the record. Sounds awesome. Old and Wise. Now this is on Eye in the Sky album. I'm on the verge of buying that Super Deluxe box set from 6 or 8 years ago. Comes with vinyl, CDs, Blu-ray. You know, can't bring myself to buy it. Reading a lot of reviews trying to talk myself into it. People talking about Old and Wise as being their favorite song of all time. So I have to tell you, I didn't have that album until a couple years ago. This version, I think it's finally, I'm getting it now. Really good version. The vocals on this version are great. Really hard to duplicate perfect studio vocals. This dude kind of just does. And a great version of the song. And yeah, it is a great song. So one of the favorites. Games People Play. Guys, when I seen these guys live, and I thought it was this tour, I was wrong. I looked it up. I didn't see them till 99. Games People Play was the encore. I never really dug that song too much. I used to have Best of Alan Parsons back in the 80s. I didn't really like it. I didn't not like it. I just didn't love it. Something about seeing the crowd go apeshit at that 99 show when it was an encore. And of course the performance was awesome. It clicked. That song clicked. I would like to do a show one day with songs that you didn't get until you saw them live. All right, because that would be one of them. And there are at least a half dozen I can name off the top of my head. Games People Play on here is great. I love that song now. And this is another one where Ian Berenson, he sounds amazing on here. The solo sounds better than the record, and the record's awesome. So this is unbelievable solo. Killer. Psychobabble gets an honorable mention just because it's such a great song. It doesn't sound as good as the record. How could it? But it's cool. Overall, guys, I'm really happy I picked up this CDR. This effing CDR. But it was $17, you know. What can I say? Quick peek. Guess I should have did that earlier. It's upside down. All that. But, you know, jewel case. Loving it. Night of the Live project from APP. Cool stuff. Last but not least, guys, Black Sabbath Definitive Paris 1983. How does it hold up versus the former title? Let's find out. Zodiac is the label for this one, so it's silver press as always from them guys. Just came out last month. It's about time we get an upgrade. You know, it's incomplete, but 12 songs altogether, 10 songs plus 2 solos. A Space Ballard, Paris, that's your venue. Paris, France, September 30th of 83. The Born Again tour. Love Born Again. 3 bonus tracks from Sport Hall, Bootleg in Germany, 2 days earlier. Born Again, but just in a nutshell. Gillan replaces Ronnie James Dio. What is it, early 83, right? Born Again gets recorded from May and June of 83. Ward records the album on drums, but he can't tour. Fellow Birmingham native, ex-ELO drummer Bev Bevan gets the call. And that's your lineup for the Born Again tour. Bev Bevan, Iommi, Geezer Butler, Ian Gillan. They released the album August, September of 83. The tour starts in August. Previous release called Eurolines was a non-label release, same exact material. I was able to pick this up a couple years ago. 2012 is when it actually came out. It is a silver press, no label. Versus the download that I had on the computer at the time, you know, online. This blew it away. Nice upgrade. I'll show it to you real quick. I've shown it to you before. All right. On to Zodiac's Definitive Paris. As you would expect, and as I hoped, better sound on this guy. All right. It's 11 years later. All the technology improvements help things like this out. It definitely gets a boost on the overall sound. Greater clarity overall, basically. The original source was a very, very lo-fi kind of thing. Very flat and dry. I mean, it almost sounded like Bev Bevan was playing on cardboard boxes. It was bad. Remastering on this, by the way, by Graf Zeppelin. They're known for their good work. Another good job here. Because of the flat original source, the boosting kind of has a little bit of an overall bassy feel. It's not a big deal, guys. I just turned my treble up like 1. I typically keep my super bass on and still keep my bass at 7 anyway. I didn't have to touch either of those. I just turned my treble from 7.5 up to like 8.5. And that was it. Really good sound. Definitely improved even over Eurolines. All right. Still, you have some slight distortion. It's always been there. Probably boosting everything overall didn't help that, but it's not that bad. Only the loudest parts have a little distortion. Overall, not a big deal. Highlights from this one, I'm going to go with, Children of the Grave is cool. Hotline to me is a favorite. I just love that song. Sounds really good. You got War Pigs next. I never really liked Dio's version of Ozzy's songs, but I never really minded Ian Gillan's. I think because Gillan kind of makes them his own, I know he didn't know the lyrics by heart, had papers on stage and all that shit. It just doesn't matter. He makes the songs his own in some way that Dio, for the most part, never really tried to do. That and maybe just Gillan's style. I don't know. It just works for me hearing Gillan do Ozzy. War Pigs. Now we're into a section of this CD where we have 4 songs in a row. The only versions on Soundboard from that tour. Supernaut. I never thought of Bev Bevan being... I always thought he was like the worst drummer Sabbath ever had. Sorry to say. This CD actually is changing my mind a little bit. Supernaut starts offbeat. It's almost like he's fumbling, all right? He gets it together eventually, and the song's okay. It's not the best version ever. Having snare drum be offbeat doesn't help. But it does eventually sort of come together. Gillan doing the sing-along with the riff, the way he used to do it with Richie and Purple, is kind of cool, all right? So it's just cool to finally have, although the version's not awesome, finally have a Soundboard version of Supernaut from this tour. The drum solo's next, and you know what? The drum solo is actually really good. Bev Bevan can play, I don't think I really heard him do a drum solo on the other bootlegs I have. Or if I did, it didn't, impress me much. Here you can clearly hear Gillan playing those congas. Clearly hear Bev Bevan's drums. They sound good here. And he sounds good playing them. It's kind of cool, I have to admit. Shockingly, I have to admit that. Rock and Roll Doctor. The drum solo goes into the opening sort of cowbell, snare riff on the drums into Rock and Roll Doctor. And when it comes in with Iommi, it's heavy as hell and it sounds great. It's just a good version. Hearing Gillan sing something that's not about Satan kind of fits him a little more too. I really love this version. I think it might be the best live version I ever heard, honestly. Really good, and it's really heavy. The last of the songs, not on any other Soundboard, Disturbing the Priest. This one is a little too much for Gillan to handle live, at least on this night. He actually doesn't even sing in some spots as he's trying to gather himself or whatever. Tough one to sing. I'm not going to, no judgments. But, I still like having a Soundboard version of this song live because I love it. It's one of my favorites on the album. And it's cool to just have it. All right, let's just leave it at that. Moving on, got Iron Man, which I think is only partial. A minute or two, it fades out. Comes back, fades back in. It's a guitar solo. Iommi starts, it's like wah-wah kind of thing, kind of slow. He does a full orchid. It goes into a blazing kind of thing. And that goes right into Digital Bitch. Digital Bitch is strong here. Great version of Digital Bitch. And especially towards the end. When the song normally fades, but it can't fade because it's live, Bevan sounds really awesome. And Geezer lays a couple of awesome little fast riffs in there. So Digital Bitch overall is great. Smoke on the Water's good. Paranoid, of course, is your ender. The bonus tracks are actually kind of cool because you have Black Sabbath as one of them, which isn't on the Paris show. And it's a really good version. I really dig the version of Sabbath. Some people think Gillan's version of Black Sabbath is the best ever. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I certainly don't mind him singing this song. But this one sounds pretty similar to the one on, Wista Mass, captured live. So it's another good version of Black Sabbath, but just kind of cool that it's a bonus track here since that song's not on the Paris show. But then you get a couple more that are, Smoke on the Water and Paranoid Again. That's your definitive Paris 83. It is a sound upgrade for sure. Showed you the cover. Here's the inside. It's not just a tray card for a change. Folds out to that 2-page spread of the band. There's the disc, and behind the disc, pretty cool. And there it is without the case. And for a change, the numbered sticker, not in the 200s, 043 with this one. It's Black Sabbath for sure, so just for that reason alone you need it. Now seriously, it is really an upgrade on the sound. Not that this sounded bad, this was a significant upgrade at the time. 2012. Here we go, guys, 11 years later, technology helps us out once again. Good stuff. Final thing. First of all, this. Oh man, good stuff. Let's rip this bitch open. Disc Japan shut down. RZ, here I come. You ain't stopping it. You ain't stopping the madness. Not stopping it. All right, man. I actually have another order with RZ out there. It's like a dozen things. So I'm not even sure what I'm about to see. I have one or two things I know are in here. The rest, I'm not sure which order I got it on. Let's see what's up. You know what, guys? I should mention this because I busted their balls before about all the cracked cases and the shitty packaging. This time, we're all intact. What do you know? This is like my fourth order from RZ, guys. So, all right, we've got a couple DVDs. Let's start out with those. Hell Freezes Over in New Zealand, 1995. Now, I know this has been out there forever. I just never saw it. Never owned it. I'm sure it's on YouTube. The reunion tour, the Hell Freezes Over tour, November 26, 1995, Christchurch, New Zealand. Kind of cool. I like having my DVDs in the old school DVD case. I know they take up more room. I know they take up more packaging. I don't care. This is how I want my DVDs, when at all possible, in a DVD case. So I can't wait to check this out, man, because I really have not watched any videos from this tour, ever. All right? I'm not even sure that they have an official video from that tour. Here you go, another video, ZZ Top, Dortmund 1982, Rock Pop in Concert. Is that from Germany, I think? I think I have this on a burned CDR from my trading days in that big old binder. But I think I got, this was, guys, if you're going to shop RZ, don't buy anything unless it's half off. It's almost always half off. If it's not, wait a week, it will be. All right, so I think this thing ran like $12.50. I think that Eagles was $10. Kind of cool. I'm just opening them up, so I can't show you anything more right now. They're all wrapped. All right, some CDs. This was actually a double CDR that I think was $5. Allman Brothers Band with Eric Clapton. Of course, he appeared at their Beacon Theater run 2009, 19th and 20th. So both nights, it's just the Clapton with Allman's material. All right, which for $5, 2 CDRs, I don't even care if they skip for that much. You know what I mean? I'd love to get the full shows of these if they're on Soundboard. I didn't even really look into that. I saw this title for $5 and I'm like, okay, yes, please. Then Lizzie, I don't even own this regular album. I don't even own Thunder and Lightning. Here's Thunder and Lightning demos. I think these were $10. Hell yeah. I mean, I'm biding my time until I can get the deluxe edition. That has probably most of these on there. I know. But you know what? I've been hunting and waiting for a year or two. So let me just like sort of appease myself for a little bit with Thunder and Lightning demos from Lizzie. Here's an interesting Floyd title. Now, this one I had 25 years ago. There used to be a record shop in Philly called the Record Castle. They had legit stuff, used and new. They also had bootlegs. Zabriskie Point studio album, we're calling this, or virtual studio album. Virtual Zabriskie Point, whatever you want to call it. All the songs are the same. Okay, but what I have it on is like a burned, you know, verbatim or Sony CDR. So for $5, $10, whatever I paid, getting it on the semi-official CD and an actual kind of cover. There was a homemade cover on mine. This is a really good album. There's some really good songs on here. So it's, Floyd had a song or two on this official soundtrack, but they actually went and recorded a bunch of others that didn't make it on there, weren't really used. I'm sure they're on the early years sets, which I have. Just kind of want this on its own sort of thing. Only because I have a 25 or 30 year history with it. So for $5 or $10, hell yeah! And last but not least, some Phil Lynott. You guys can tell me what the hell this is. Avesta 1983. Folkets Park, Sweden, August 6th. I guess it's a concert. I'm sure it's Soundboard. I wouldn't have bought it. So Phil solo tour from 83. There you go. Guys, that's going to wrap it up for this session of Bootleg Madness. This Japan is closing down. Don't worry. Put your tissues away. There are other options. I think I might do a whole episode on the whole situation. Just bootlegs in general. I don't know. Who knows what's coming tomorrow? All I can tell you is there's going to be music playing in this house. Guys, I'll catch you all later. Everyone have a good one. Talk to you.